Hey, this is Dr. Bernard Fragomeni with the Humanbeing, the Wellbeing Companies. Today, we've got a special treat. We've got one of our superstar coaches, Rachel Reilly, hailing out of the Boston area via New Hampshire, where she also went to school and was an unbelievable basketball star, where she at one point led the league, not her team, the league in rebounds, points, and assists. So we're happy to have her here. We're going to talk a little bit about her experience, about her calling in life and why she came on board with Humanbeing, the Wellbeing Companies. So, Rachel, how is it? I haven't even asked you. We were talking a little bit before. What's going on in Boston? It looks like there might be. Is there sunshine out there this week?
It was beautiful today. Actually, 50 degrees and beautiful.
Oh, it's perfect. We like that. I know when I used to spend a lot of time in Boston, it was stepping in slush puddles, traipsing around the streets in the financial district and other areas where you would have to go back to the hotel room and change into a different suit. You were swamped. So I'm glad to hear that it's not full on winter. So let's talk a little bit. So like I mentioned, you went to St. Anselm's. You started briefly at UNH, right?
Correct.
In hoops. So let's talk. So you were a longtime passionate person with basketball. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. My dad and I used to always just play in the front yard. He went to UMaine and played. So ever since childhood, it was just kind of our thing and our way to bond. And I found that was a really fun way to spend time together, but also just talk and build relationships, which is something that's really important to me. And that led to actually, because we were spending so much time together, building a lot of skills and became my number one sport.
Yeah. And you even continued to play a little bit. You were telling me you continued playing a little bit at a higher competitive level in Boston, right?
Yeah, so Harvard has this league called the Kevin Honan League that is outdoor, that draws in an amazing crew as far as talent is concerned, mostly D1 and D2 women from all around the nation. So been on some pretty good teams and had some pretty good fights.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so if people don't know, you and I know because we're both from the Northeast, and you're obviously from right in that neck of the woods, but UNH is a D1 basketball school. St. Anselm's is a D2 basketball school. So Rachel's got some game, and she still has some game. But, you did get sick at the tail end of that, and then you played for a while after and were involved in coaching kids and stuff, because you and I have talked about that before. But you started kind of a journey of looking to do stuff that might not be as high impact on your body going back a while ago. So talk a little bit about that, what led you to start to do some of the certifications that you did after college. And even though you were still playing competitive basketball, you started to do some other stuff.
Yeah. So when I moved to Boston just over 10 years ago now, I was involved in the leagues and constantly running. There's a beautiful oceanfront area in my neighborhood. So I would be out there all the time. And I just said to myself, like, why am I killing myself to run and play hoops all the time? I had never really delved into yoga at that point or anything quite like it. And I read an article online about a local studio. I emailed the owner, and that day she called me back and said, can you come in next week and we can talk about having you work here? I fell in love with the workout and thought to myself, why aren't more people my age at that point? I think I was 25, trying this workout, and especially for cross-training purposes, coming from the basketball environment where so much injury happens, especially for women and ACL tears. This non-impactful workout is going to work out not only your hamstrings, but also your quads. And that's where the injuries lie, is there some sort of asymmetry in those muscle groups. So it really became a thing where I was telling all of my friends who were still playing, you've got to try bar, you've got to try Pilates, or if they were coaching high school teams in the area, which a lot of them do, I was saying, I'll come to your gym and I'll work out with your kids to have them try something new.
That's awesome that you're doing that. That's part of what I didn't know. So you started doing that stuff. You were still at this time a full-time teacher of Espanol.
I was, yeah.
Is my accent gets here, but that's something you had done. You did that for a long time, right?
I did that for 11 years. And I had experienced, just on the tail end of that, had experienced breathwork meditation and had such a powerful experience that I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to dive headfirst into fitness and wellness and exploring more of holistic healing practices. And with the COVID shutdown, to be truthful, I did an even deeper dive and used the time to get a number of different certifications in Reiki and reflexology as well, to just continue building.
That's awesome. And so you got into breathwork initially. It was kind of a little bit by mistake, not by mistake, but the gal that owns that the place that you're at had somebody come in and got you turned on to that, and you were like really interested in predominantly for yourself at first, like what the impact it had for you, right?
Yeah, I just found it odd that again, some people have these modalities that they're using all the time, or at least, and maybe in my brain I just hadn't been listening well enough to other people, but I hadn't heard of it before. So when these people said we brought a breathwork specialist in, I was scared because it wouldn't necessarily be something that I would sign up for on my own free will. So a happy accident as far as I'm concerned, because it has been such a powerful thing for me. Just being able to deal with stressful situations a little bit more gentle towards myself first, and that allows me to be more gentle towards other people. It's just had an amazing effect on my life so far. And it's only been, I think, 18 months since I started.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. It seems to me that you were doing a lot longer than that with your level of skill and expertise in it. Let's talk a little bit about, for some people that might not know, I know there's a lot of different types of breathwork modalities, just like I did a little post today that I was telling you about before we got on camera, about mindfulness. There's a lot of different iterations of that are out there as well. So some people might have a different perception, or their definition of what we're talking about might be slightly different. So let's talk about a little bit, like maybe what it's all about, what a session would look like, and then we'll talk about maybe some people that you've seen have some tremendous effects and impacts from it. So maybe you start out with what is it? Like when you're saying breath work, for the person that might not know, what are we talking about?
Yeah. So a breathwork meditation is just intentionally changing your breathing pattern from something that is called active from your passive breathing pattern. So you might say, okay, well, what does that mean? How do you breathe on a day-to-day basis is your passive breathing pattern, right? Are you breathing through your nose? Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you breathing up through your chest? Especially most of us are, right? Unless you think about it, then you're breathing deeply into your belly. Are you taking shallow breaths? Are you taking deep breaths? We are supposed to be breathing through our nose into our belly deeply on a regular basis, but then life gets in the way, just like with everything, and we forget, and our environment's different from one situation to the next. We don't know what's going to happen, so we're all tense. Our shoulders are rounded up. So what I do in my sessions is I explain exactly that. Like, this is how we are. Most of us are. And then here is what we're going to do. We're going to lay down, or you can do it sitting up, and you're going to take a deep inhalation through the nose or through the mouth, and it's in two parts. So you can think of it as like a 1-2. And some people say the healing modality that I learned, my teaching was one deep belly breath and then one deep inhale up through the chest. If you do like a Wim Hof or Andrew Huberman style, it's just a 2-second inhale, they call it. But essentially it's the same because the breath is being built up all the way to the top.
Yeah.
So you're breathing rhythmically like that, which is different than your passive pattern. And what happens is your body becomes more alkaline. So you're going to feel some physical effects. You're going to maybe get some tingling or have some heat moving in your body. And a lot of that is scientific, like this is just what happens physiologically. And on the healer side or spiritual side, they say that's energy moving. Those are your chakras clearing. And you can be 3 different types of meditators. Clairsentient, you're going to feel a lot. Clairvoyant, you're going to be seeing a lot, almost having visions. And then clairaudient, your hearing is heightened.
That's really cool. So it actually changes things, for people that are listening to this. It has not just effects psychologically, let's just say, but physiologically. There's actually things that happen to people, and they experience different things in real time when they're doing it. But there's lasting effects too, right? That happens. Can you talk about maybe somebody you've worked with after a certain amount of sessions that they had something happen whether it's a release or whether it's something that they feel that, stress seems different to them, or the way they at least perceive stress, because there really isn't such a thing with stress. It's a reaction that we have to a stimulus. But talk about that. You've probably had some great experiences from, I think, what you've told me with some folks.
Yeah, I have one client who actually was so funny. During COVID, she watched Down to Earth. It was a Netflix special with Zac Efron and Darian O'Lian.
Oh yeah,
And
I've seen it. I know what you're talking about.
it was amazing. It was great. But she came in for a session, and it was her first one. And she had gone to the doctor recently, had some negative results for like blood work, cholesterol, all that kind of stuff. And she was like, I'm changing my diet after watching Down to Earth. I was like, well, this is amazing and she was like, you're going to think I'm crazy. You're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm kind of obsessed with this stuff now. And I said, well, you're in the right place, because this is just going to add to what you're already doing.
Mm-hmm.
And went through the breathwork session. She had the tingles. She was like, my legs. So at the end, she said, Rachel, how am I 70 years old and no one's ever talked to me about this? How like, what else can I be doing? Like, what other references do you have? It's that much feeling. And then just knowing, if I feel this good right after a session, and then the next day I was texting her to catch up, and she says, I feel great. This is like, I just feel able to press pause on situations that are stressful.
Yeah.
And calmly react, calmly deal. Like, nothing is a big, huge deal anymore. Everything is doable. I can cope with anything. So it really just does build that stress resiliency.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for people to understand, because a lot of times when people hear anyone talk about mindfulness meditation, any of these modalities that we're talking about, like with the breath work, it's very important. Like when I'm talking to people about managing their mindset versus their environment, when we're talking from a coaching perspective with them, we're talking about really, in each day, people make all these little decisions, right? And they might not think they're very significant. So let's just say somebody putting a certain food in their body or not. But what they're oftentimes not doing is paying attention. It's what we really mean by the definition of awareness or mindfulness. And when we talk about mindfulness, we're not talking about, sitting, legs folded on a mat with incense burning and somebody chanting in the background. We're talking about applying circuit breakers to stimuli in our lives that people have. And it's a skill set that people just aren't taught, like what this gal has said to you. And you can do it more formally, where you're doing it away from everything, in a more isolated atmosphere when you're teaching people, whether it's virtually now, sometimes unfortunately more than ever, or if it's actually in a room together with somebody. You're teaching them these skills so that the next time they have this stimulus, there's a circuit breaker. And whether it's that they actually go to that place physically where they remove themselves from that stimulus. I was having a conversation with somebody today, and I said, I've noticed with your food journal for this past week, when we were working with a client, that there were some slip ups, and what happened there. And like, well, I walked over to my pantry and I opened it up and I took an Oreo. I'm like, okay, so let's just talk about how, and I'm not beating up somebody because they had one Oreo when they did phenomenally well for a whole week. But what they realized was that was what they were thinking. What I was thinking is, no, what happened there? Back up 5 minutes before that. What happened? And what happened was there was some sort of a stressor, a perceived stressor. And we had already identified that this person is somebody that may have an issue with stress response eating. And it's typically going to be, when that happens, your brain tells you to go get something that makes your brain happy, from a dopamine or serotonin release response. And you're going to go after something that hits those centers. And those centers want stuff that are typically high fat or sweet. Just to very oversimplify it for anybody that's listening. So what I had said was, let's go back up 5 minutes. What we want you to do is do some sort of so we went through like a little two-part breath in, just for 5, feeling her belly, feeling her pulling her shoulders back, oversimplified from how technical you would get with people. And I said, I want you to try that the next time. I don't care what the stimulus is that might be either making you angry or anxious or depressed or hungry in this instance. I want you to put a circuit breaker in, and I don't want you to walk into that room. I want you to walk into a different room and physically separate yourself And then I want you to emotionally separate yourself through concentrating on this. And I said, if it takes you 3 times in 5 breaths, 3 times, and you still feel you need that Oreo, go ahead and have it. Don't stress out about it. It's not a big deal. Like, forgive yourself. It's not that big of a deal. But what you're getting at is some of the same thing for people. And when you have it and you learn the skill set outside of an event like that, it transfers over to the rest of someone's lives. Do you have any other stories of somebody that you've worked with that would be kind of neat to hear as far as other things besides that one gal?
Sure. Well, I was just talking to a client today who is working from home. She's down in Charlotte, and she said she got super frustrated all morning with the team that she was working with. And she said normally she would, similar to your client, maybe go eat or whatever. She goes, I took a walk and I focused on my breathing. So circuit breaker, David G is a popular meditation instructor who calls it a pattern interrupt. So whatever you're used to doing.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things, it takes practice, right? And then you really do consider it like a tool in your tool belt, tool kit that you can pull out whenever you are met with some sort of challenge that is, a wide variety of challenges that we do face.
Now, do you ever get into, I'm putting you on the spot asking you this because we didn't talk about this before, but do you ever get into talking to people about, the effect that diaphragmatic breathing or the diaphragm has on like vagal tone or any of those types of things? Is that something you find yourself ever talking to people about, or you don't get that deep necessarily with them?
I only really bring up vagal tone if it's something that is experienced by the client in a session. Okay. It's dependent on what they feel. And a lot of times, because if they do have a powerful experience, they then do want to talk about it afterwards. So if they bring something up where like, this part of my body was tingling, what does that mean? Or I was seeing this color, what does that mean? Just looking for a little bit of symbolism, I can help them decode it. If they happen to mention hearing music really intensely, we know that humming and singing is something that tones the vagus nerve. It's soothing to us. It helps with anxiety. I've definitely had people say after the fact of working together, okay, I'm noticing the effects. I sing a lot to soothe myself, but then I know now that I can breathe, and I'm noticing that breathing to music is helpful because you can keep that steady beat and it keeps you on track, which is different than a lot of other types of meditation where it's just very slow and soothing, like a Deepak Chopra style. And people are saying like, I'm falling asleep during this. You gotta explore a little bit and find a modality or a version of meditation that works best for you so that you can reap the benefits. Yeah.
I mean, it's important for people to understand is we're talking about it like as a stress circuit breaker. But it's not just about that. You can have long-term effects. I know for me, we call it stress, but it's actually kind of a built-up latent level of anxiety more so. And when people kind of misdescribe it oftentimes, when we speak with people, they oftentimes call it the wrong thing. We don't slap them on the wrist and tell them they don't understand what they're trying to explain about how they feel. But we know that they're actually talking about something else. And you experienced it yourself with having some mild anxiety issues at one point in your life, and they're pretty much, and you were treating it sometimes, but you don't have to now because you're treating it just with breath work that you're doing, right?
Right. And similarly to anything, what are you doing to take care of what ails you? To be honest, I wasn't really doing anything because I didn't know what to do. So I was just like, go, 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 go. Got to keep up with the world. I got this job to go to. I'm working at a fitness class after school. I got a tutor, and I'm on the hamster wheel kind of a thing. And then I experienced this and was like, whoa, like this is it. And then I immediately jumped into practicing on a regular basis and like a 21-day challenge or booking appointments with breathwork meditation coaches of my own. And here we are. I can't shut up about it.
I think you and I tend to both get a little passionate about the things that we believe in, so that's okay. I think that probably comes through to people, and that's important. For why I wanted to talk to you about this stuff is that we saw a very big crescendo in what we call just overall loss of stress resiliency as we wheeled into this, I won't use an explicative, show of 2020, right? With this COVID thing going on, and the BLM stuff in the middle of the summer caused a lot of stress and anxiety in a lot of the cities throughout the country. And I think even people that weren't in those locations felt it as well. It was a very bad energy vibe, spreading throughout. And it seemed like things started to calm around. Then came the election stuff, right? And the angst with that. And I've been noticing with people is there's another upheaval, and I've even kind of felt it a little bit myself, I think, that there's that, again, that stress and that anxiety and depression. And I'm talking to a lot of folks that are working with our coaches and talking with people I work with directly. We're seeing it again. And, we take for granted sometimes the things that we do to help ourselves out and heal ourselves. And we sometimes maybe forget to share that gift with other people. And, what I want people to hear from this chat is, I wouldn't go so far as to say there's hope, but what I want to say to people is if you've not heard the things that Rachel's talking about, that I'm talking about ever before, and not explored them because maybe you thought, the very typical thing with a lot of guys is they think they're like too macho and too cool to do this. And it's just not something they do. And I actually think that that's a little bit of fear themselves. You mentioned that word with trying something new, that people are kind of like, woo, I don't know if I want to do this. What I want to implore people is that this could be kind of that magic bullet that could help you. People are feeling more stress, more anxious, more depressed than ever. And this is something that can really help people. And there are a lot of modalities. And what I would implore you is, you can reach out to our group. You could reach out to Rachel directly after this, as far as trying this. Worst case scenario, just Google some things. There's different things that you can kind of look up as far as different methods that are out there to go after mindfulness, meditation, breath work. We're going to be putting together, where we're going to be offering for people right now to do our 21 days of mindfulness course that you're familiar with, Rachel, for free, along with a coach. So this is something, if you're listening, you could get somebody like Rachel to help you go through this. She can add in some breath work stuff. We're going to be recording. We'd like to do it in person, but we're in this dang virtual world, but we'd like to have it in person. We're going to take Rachel and one of our other coaches that are real expert in this area, and we're going to do a little series to help people learn this stuff. But there is help out there for people. And what I want to tell you is the answer is not in drinking more and eating more and taking more. You don't have a deficit of some antidepressant medication out there. Your body never had those things in there to begin with anyway. So there's what are labeled as alternative forms, but I like to say they're more mainstream because it's just helping your body turn on its healing processes that are there for you. So with some of the stuff that Rachel talked about, you could reach out to us and find ways to get help. So let's talk about, kind of segue from that. You made a very big change in your life. You've been teaching for a long time in Spanish, and that's what you had a very comfortable life with what you were doing. But you're now fully involved in becoming a coach with us and with working in this level of expertise that you've gained with breath work and some of the other areas. Do you feel a calling? Like, what really got you compelled to make such a significant change at a time in your life that you did?
I think it was just kind of the missing puzzle piece, really, to what I've been experiencing. I felt for a long time like this is a good job. Like I'm good at this. I love being around children. I have wonderful coworkers, but like, am I happy all the time? No. Like what else makes me happy? I love the fitness aspect. I love making people feel good. I experienced the breath work, got certified in that, went out to California for an intensive training. And I just thought, like, this is it. This is it. I need to do a deeper dive, not only selfishly to a degree, right? Because I knew how much it was helping me to feel better. And again, okay, let's spread that message. So when I saw the opportunity at Humanbeing to Wellbeing, I just thought to myself, like, the nutrition piece for me is something that you always grow up with a general knowledge of most things, right? Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And it's like, okay, but because again, we get caught running around, like crazy people, that we make the instant gratification decisions or the convenient decision. So I was really interested in learning, in addition to the neuroscience aspect of breath work and the physiological response, long-term effects, that nutrition affects you obviously in the same way. What we put into our bodies has an effect on the cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we know that, right? And a lot of times it's too late or something has to be really wrong for people to want to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? So I kind of looked at myself, to be honest with you, and then said, okay, well, how's my family doing? How could this affect my family? What kind of information sharing could I do then? I can be my healthiest self. I can share this information with everybody that I know, help as many people as possible. I loved speaking with you. I think our interview at the first time was supposed to be 15 minutes and we talked for an hour.
Yep. Yep.
And I remember you asking me, if you had a magic wand, what would your ideal role be? And I said, well, I've never had an employer ask me that before. Like, what do you want? I've never been asked that in an interview. So I just felt immediately like it was a great fit. And I just love the mission.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, you kind of spoke to it, but we went around kind of the room, virtual room a week ago. And I said, what's your why of like, why you're doing this? You kind of answered it, but is there anything else you would add to it? That you might not have thought of?
I suppose another aspect of it would be the relationship piece. That's why I loved being a teacher. I loved being on a basketball team, right? That's your
Yeah.
family. I loved being in the classroom. You've got kids who are looking to you for guidance. Mm-hmm. And all you're supposed to do is help them be better people out in the world.
Yeah.
And then, the fitness aspect, people are looking to you. They're saying, this is hurting me. What kind of exercises should I be doing? Or I'm having this issue. What can I be doing? So this is just another piece to add on to all of those things. Building relationships and helping people is really what my passion is.
So a continuation of being a teacher, but just in a little bit of a different way.
Right, for sure.
From that standpoint, I think that's important as well. From my calling. But I think it's just a way that you're setting a good example, but then showing people the way as well. And inspiring them even a little bit, right? So I think that's pretty important. Well, good. I think that to me is awesome. I know that we feel really blessed to have you as a coach that came on board with us early on as we're launching into this crazy thing where we're bringing on hopefully 100 people in the next 6 months to become coaches throughout the country. And I know I'm looking to you to be a leader with some of the people that we're bringing on board. So we feel blessed. I know the work you do with the breath work. I can just tell people, I had kind of an experience when Rachel brought us through an exercise as a team and even learned something new. And it was a pretty cool experience, that we went through with our team. And, I feel blessed to have you even do that because it showed me something that I wasn't even aware of, so I always say to people in this field, I'm learning something new every day myself, but that was something that was unexpected for sure, very emotional. So it was cool. So I thank you for that. That was cool. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up. I want to just thank you again for taking time. This has been cool. We're trying to do this whole series where we're featuring each of our coaches in a video podcast that will be released out to folks. Hopefully people got something from this and learned something a little bit new about that they can actually handle their life a little bit better and some of the stressors that they're perceiving that are going on in this crazy world in which we currently live. So I wanted to thank you again, Rachel, for participating, and we'll see you on the other side.
Sounds good.
This has been the Human Being to Wellbeing Show with Dr. Bernard J. Fragomeni. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms so you can stay in touch and in tune with everything that we're bringing you around health style, transformation, natural medicine, functional nutrition, nutritional psychology, and the whole gamut that's going to make you live forever as a well-being. Go out and make this day the best day you've ever had, because it's the one that we've got.